Don't stop.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me on my 200th episode of Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. I thought a lot about what I wanted to say in this 200th episode, and I'm thrilled. You know, there's an average that most people don't even get through the first 5 episodes of their podcast. And I started off doing this podcast as kind of a passion project. And me and my husband were sitting at our dining room table with all this podcast equipment I bought and no video at that time. We were just doing audio only and talking about our 25 years at that time of being in a relationship together, our 18 moves we have made. I think it was 17 at that time. And then my friend Jennifer came to visit me in the area I live, and she also did a couple episodes with me. We even did an episode that didn't air. I should try to find that, listen to it, just because I thought it was stupid. So we didn't air it. But then I went into trying to get guest people I didn't know, and it was I was begging people. I was going on Facebook groups and TikTok and Instagram stories trying to find people that I thought were interesting. I would sign up for these services to get guests and stuff, and just so much insanity. And I named the show Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay because I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to have the guests that I wanted on. And I feel like if I'm interested in some of these topics that I come up with, I feel like other people would be too. So that's kind of why I did it. And I didn't want to limit myself to a niche. And I did not want my show to be all about gay because, not all my stories, some of my stories have nothing about the LGBTQ plus world in them at all. It could be a completely straight person I'm talking with, and there's nothing gay about it. And, but I'm in it, so it is always a little gay or a bit gay because I'm part of the episode. But I love having conversations with people. There's been a lot of stories. There's been a lot of moments that I never expected to actually happen. And if I'm being honest, when I started this, I had no idea where I would actually be with this podcast. I never would have guessed I would have been over 2.5 years that I was doing this podcast. And I never thought that I would leave a corporate job, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But here's one or a few things that I know: that I love telling people's stories. I love meeting people that are interesting. And I love just kind of those hopeful, aspirational, inspiring stories. I love hearing how people think and what they've been through and what shaped them and what made their lives who they are today, what broke them, but also what rebuilt them. I love those moments when I have a conversation with somebody and you're like, oh my God, are we having you forget you're on the podcast. Sometimes I forget I'm talking with someone in a podcast. And because they say something so real and so honest, and that kind of just makes me pause sometimes, and I just take it in, and I forget I'm on a podcast, and I just feel like I'm having a conversation with a friend. And those are always the best episodes. And one more thing, I love just telling these stories, and it could be any story from, a person that is a psychic medium, a person that had a near-death experience, a person that is coming out later in life, a person that has a child that came out and they accepted it, a sleep coach that I've interviewed early on in my podcast, a woman that interacts with aliens. I mean, I've done so many unique and amazing stories, but I never ever thought I would love it where it would turn into this, a podcast. I now have an audience. There's a community. This is now my career. I never thought I would leave my job that I was doing full time. This podcast is a full-time job, and I was doing it on the weekends and after work when I was doing my full-time corporate job. And I have no idea now that I'm only doing the podcast as my full-time job. I had no idea how I did it. It all seems kind of surreal when I say it out loud. And I went to a bar a few weeks ago out with some friends to have a drink in Boston. And I got recognized from my podcast. That was surreal. It was odd. They're like, oh, I know you. You look familiar. I know you. And they said, I've seen your story with Benjamin Smith, and I seen your story with John Hill. And that was one of the things I always have wondered, is anybody actually listening to this? I mean, I see the analytics, so I know people are listening to it, but who's really listening to it? Because I had no idea. And it just felt so surreal. And for a long time, I was like debating, like, should I leave my corporate job? Should I take a different path? It's so structured. I have a plan. I have a 401k. I have insurance. I have equity. I have all this stuff. But I wasn't feeling it as much as I did. And this podcast is something that I love. I just didn't know if I could make it a full-time thing. And somewhere along the way, that all changed. Somewhere between the conversations and the stories, the connections, that made me stop and think, this is what I want to do. So today, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about what I got wrong and what 200 conversations that I've had have taught me about people, about life, and honestly, about who I've become through all this. So first, let's talk about what I got wrong, because there's a lot. I got a lot wrong. I thought relationships were about finding the one. I really believe that. Like, there is this one perfect person out there for everyone. And if you found them, if the chemistry was there, if they checked enough boxes, everything would just work. And if it didn't, they weren't the one. Simple. Yeah, not so simple. The people I have talked to have taught me so much. Yeah, I've learned through my own experiences, but these people have taught me so much about relationships, that relationships are less about finding the right person and more about finding the right person that is ready for you. Because being ready means you've done the work. It means that you've looked at your patterns. It means that you've owned your own baggage, which we all have. Some of us have more than others. It means you understand how to show up, and not just when things are easy, but when things get hard. And I didn't always have that. And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. I remember struggling earlier in my 20s when I left Miami to come to move to New York. I was so over guys. I'm like, they're all just assholes. I want to move to New York City. I think I was 24 or 25. I want to move to New York City and I don't want a relationship. And right when I said that is whenever it happened. There were so many times when I was confused about connections that I made. Was I compatible with somebody? What's the potential with this? I'd go through my moments where I'm like, oh, is this the one? Is this going to be my husband? Is this going to be my boyfriend? Is this the person I'm going to live with for the rest of my life? And I have learned through this podcast, so many people, most people go through the same thing that I went through. I also thought confidence was performance. I used to think confidence looked like being the loudest person in the room, the funniest, the most outgoing, the one who could command attention and get it. But after 200 conversations, that idea has completely changed, because I've sat across from people who have built incredible lives, overcome things that most people don't talk about. They have reinvented themselves in ways that are honestly so inspiring to me and to so many people. And a lot of them are not loud at all. Real confidence can be quiet. It can be grounded. It's the person who knows who they are and they don't need to prove anything to anyone. And I had to unlearn that, because there's a difference between being seen and actually knowing yourself. And I've met with so many people that actually know who they are, and they're teaching people to have that same thing to find out who they are. They're teaching people how to do that, and I love that. And I thought success would feel like arrival. I thought there would be this moment that I hit a milestone, like 200 episodes. I'm like, okay, I've made it. Like everything would just click into place. But that's not how it works. There's no arrival. There's just growth. And then another level of growth. And if I'm being honest, if I told you a few years ago I'd be doing this full time, I don't know if I would have believed. I wouldn't have believed you. I never would have thought I would have left a corporate job to do a podcast full time, because I had a different life mapped out for the last part of my career. A corporate path that made sense, that was stable, that felt safe, that was giving me my insurance, 401k, my equity, all that stuff. But what I learned is that sometimes success isn't always staying on the path that you thought you were supposed to follow. If you have the courage to leave it, do it. To choose something else that feels more aligned to who you are, you should do it. And that's what's come to me. Because success doesn't erase doubt. It doesn't suddenly make you feel like you have everything figured out. And if anything, it gives you a bigger stage to keep growing. And what it does give you, it's perspective, because what matters to me is that it isn't like the number, oh, I have 200 episodes. It's the impact. It's the messages. It's the stories I got to tell for people. It's the conversations I had. It's the people I have met. The people who reach out and say, that episode meant so much to me. It meant something to me. It changed the way I think about things. That is the real message that I love receiving from people. Recently, I've had these interviews where people have come to me and said, no one has ever asked me that question. You are doing, like, I've never talked about this to anybody else, not even my friends. And then I get a message or an email afterwards. Thank you so much for making me talk about that in our conversation. Whenever things like that happen, it's just an unbelievable feeling. I remember when I first was starting my podcast and I would listen back to them. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have no idea how to interview people. And I would talk over people. As people were talking, I'm like, yeah, yep. I would do all this stuff that was very interruptive to the conversation. And it's just things that you learn. So again, I thought I had it all figured out. I used to think I needed to have answers all the time. Like if I'm hosting a podcast and interviewing people and putting myself out there, I need to know everything. But what I've learned is that people don't connect with perfection. They connect with honesty, with curiosity. I am so curious about somebody in my guest, with someone who's willing to say, I don't know, but I'm open to learning. And that's what this podcast has become for me. Not a place where I have all the answers, because I don't, but a place where I ask better questions and I have conversations. Because I'll just tell you something about the people that I interview. I do a little research on them. I look them up. I don't spend a lot of time. I don't write questions. But what I do is I have a few bullet points, and that helps sometimes lead my conversation. So sometimes when you see me like looking over here at my other screen, that's just because I literally have 3 to 4 bullet points. Sometimes it's even that. And sometimes I don't even look up somebody until like 10 minutes before the interview starts, and I just quickly write something down, because I feel like I don't want to be robotic whenever I'm talking to somebody or ask the same typical questions. I really want to have a real conversation with somebody. So what has 200 conversations taught me? And this is everything that really changed for me, because when you talk to enough people and you really talk to them, you see patterns. You see patterns that so many of us are the same. We all have this universal connection in so many ways. Everyone is also carrying something. I don't care how well put together someone seems. I don't care how successful or confident they look, how hot they are. Every single person has something. And I don't mean small stuff. I mean real things. There's trauma, there's loss, people have been rejected, moments that shape them in ways you would never guess. And when you hear these stories from someone, it can make a real change in your life. Whenever they are able to tell their stories, it makes a huge change in their life. You become more empathetic, you become more patient, more willing to listen. And honestly, that's the reason I love doing this so much, because every conversation I have shifts something in me. So reinvention to me is always possible. I've talked to people who have completely rebuilt their lives. They've had loss, they've had divorce, they've been cheated on. They're starting over from nothing in some points. And it made me realize you are never stuck. You may feel stuck, but you're not. And honestly, that realization is a big part of why I was able to take the leap and do this full time, because I've seen what's possible. I heard it firsthand. And at some point, I asked myself, why not me? I was waking up every day, 8 to 5 or so, working at this full time corporate job. And it was great money, but I felt like this podcast was where I needed to be. This is what felt right for me. So the right question changed everything that I asked myself in my head one morning. And this is one of my favorite parts of what I do. I love asking questions, not the surface level ones, but the real ones. I like to kind of push the boundaries a little bit, but I never want to make somebody feel uncomfortable. I want the kind of questions that make someone pause, that makes somebody come back and tell me nobody's ever asked me that. The kind that leads to answers they didn't expect to say out loud. Because when you ask somebody something real, you give them permission to be real back. And that's where the magic happens. And that's where the stories live. And that's what I care about. And that's what I think my listeners care about. When I see these bigger ratings for some of these stories, I'm like, people are listening. They get this person. I asked the right questions. I had the right conversation. Because at the core of the conversation, people really want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want you to feel like they matter. And when you create a space for that, something shifts. People open up. I've never seen some people open up when I never thought I could get them to open up. And that's why I bonded with so many people through this podcast. There's been so many people that I've interviewed that I'm texting with or we email and we've stayed in touch months, even a year after the podcast. We stay in touch because I'm not just talking to them, I'm listening and I'm really listening. Those are real connections to me. They're real when with guests, with listeners, with people who reach out and say, that conversation we had really meant something to me. And that means so much to me. Like you have no idea. Whenever I get an email saying, I enjoyed our conversation so much. I've done 195 podcasts and nobody has ever asked me that question and listened to me the way you did. Because I really do care what these people are saying to me. I think community and respect and being an ally is so important. And there's something else that has really evolved for me through all these interviews, through 200 episodes. My understanding of this community, and more specifically, my respect for the transgender community. And I'll be honest here, and we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. There was a time where I did not fully understand transgender people. Not in a negative way, it was just in a very limited way. I never was anti-trans or against trans people. I just didn't understand. I wasn't listening. I didn't pay enough attention. I didn't hear enough real stories. But through conversations and through listening, that all changed. And my respect for transgender people is something I feel so strongly about now. The courage that each person that is transgender takes, that courage that they take, that they have to put out there to be their authentic selves in a world that doesn't accept them, where we live in a country that has 670 plus bills that are trying to be laws against them, driver's license being taken away, bathroom bills where they can't use the bathroom, taking away gender affirming care. These people are just trying to live their authentic selves, trying to live who they were born as. And they are living in the wrong body. And I understand that now. I did not understand that until I interviewed and had conversations with transgender people. Bernie, who was one of the first transgender people I interviewed at 66 years old, decided to transition to become a woman. Had to tell her wife, had to tell her kids. Hardest thing ever. Ellie Krug is another person in her 50s, transitioned from a bro lawyer to becoming a woman. And I love talking with her. Her episode, just having that conversation with me, just again, made me more empathetic. And I realized how brave. If some people had even 5% of the authenticity and bravery that a transgender person has, this world would be so much better. And to be who you are in this world doesn't always come so easily for people, but they are living their authentic selves. And that is so powerful. That is strength. So let me be clear. I am such an ally for transgender people. They're probably one of the biggest allies that they can get. And I hope, because I've heard this story from transgender people as I've interviewed them, gay white men are not always an ally for them. Sometimes they treat transgender people like they don't exist out when they're in bars or whatever. And I hope my podcast changes that. I hope that you all become allies for transgender people because we all need to show up. We're all part of the LGBT plus community. And that means we need to support each other. We need to listen to each other. We need to learn from each other and we need to respect experiences that are all different from our own. And I'm committed to that. And I hope that my listeners are too. The way that I think about death has completely changed. I thought when you died, that was it. You're either cremated, you're buried, whatever. I now know We are just living in this meat suit, if that's what you want to call it, but we have a soul, and we go back and we're reincarnated, and you come back with everybody that's in your life now comes back with you in a new life. I've had a past life regression in these 200 episodes where a woman named Myra, who's an amazing woman who hypnotized me and brought me back to my past lives. And I was able to see a couple of them, and it was just surreal. I mean, I've had mediums and psychics on. I've talked to people who are furries, the whole furry culture, which I really did not understand at all. So I've had furries. I've had, I don't know, psychic mediums. I've had so many psychic mediums on my podcast, and I've had shamans. I've had witches. I've had transgender people. I've had lesbians. I've had lots of gay men that's told their stories. I've done a local series in Boston on gay people. I've done everybody that I air, I have some connection with. Every episode that comes out, I've had this conversation. There's something there that has changed who I am. And I just love that I've been able to get people that voice. So 200 episodes later, here we are. There's one thing that keeps coming back to me, and it's this. This all started because I love to tell people stories. And somehow that turned into something much bigger than I ever expected. It turned into connections. It turned into growth. It turned into a career path I never saw coming. I never would have expected. And more than anything, it allowed me to tell stories, real stories, and to be part of so many people's stories along the way. And that's something I don't take for granted. But none of it would exist without everybody that listens. So whether you're listening for the first time or you've listened to all 200 episodes or somewhere in between, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has supported this. Thank you for the people that have shared my episodes, who have sent me messages, who show up week after week to listen to my episodes. Whether you've been here the entire time, or again, if you just found this, thank you, thank you, thank you. I truly appreciate you supporting this show. I thank you for giving me your time. I thank you for allowing me to do something that I genuinely love, because this isn't something I built. This is something that grew because of you, because you listened, because you cared, and because you stayed. And again, I do not take that lightly. I am grateful every single day that I have people that are listening to my stories, that are listening to my podcast. And thank you for being here for these first 200 episodes, because I promise you, I am just getting started. I started this because I love telling stories, and I stayed because I have so many more stories to tell. And somewhere along the way, this entire podcast has changed my life for the better. So thank you for listening for 200 episodes. And here is to 200 or hopefully 2,000 more. I'm Zach Reynolds Friedman, and I'll be back next week with more LGBTQ plus stories. Thanks.